story. 1. The Man in the Closet, Uncle Rick's beach house. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of breathing that wasn't mine, slow, steady, and coming from inside the room. For a long moment I couldn't move, just staring at the dark outline of the closet across from the bed. This happened 3 summers ago at my Uncle Rick's beach house in North Carolina. He'd owned the place for decades, a weathered 2-story sitting just a few streets from the ocean. My family would use it for vacations when it was free, and that summer I had it mostly to myself. I just finished my 2nd year of college, and Rick thought a week away from campus life would do me good. The place had a rustic charm, creaky wood floors, faded seashell wallpaper in the bathroom, and a porch swing that groaned like it was carrying a secret. It wasn't fancy, but I loved how quiet it got at night, the kind of silence you don't realize you've been missing until it surrounds you. The first night passed without anything strange. I unpacked, had a couple beers, and fell asleep to the distant crash of waves. But by the 2nd night, I noticed something that made me pause. The closet door in the upstairs bedroom wouldn't stay closed. I'd push it shut, hear the latch catch, but minutes later it would creak open an inch or two. I chalked it up to the warped wood and salty air, the way old beach houses often resist repairs. Still, it bugged me. That slight gap, blacker than the rest of the room, seemed to watch me while I tried to sleep. By the 3rd night, I'd started stacking a chair against the door, just for peace of mind. But around 2:45 a.m., I woke up to the chair sliding on the floor. Not tipping over, sliding. I shot up, heart pounding, and switched on the lamp. The chair sat crooked in front of the door, as if it had been nudged from the other side. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I called Rick. I tried to laugh it off his nerves, but he got quiet and asked, "Was it the closet in the upstairs guest room?" When I said yes, he let out a sigh like he'd been expecting it. Then he brushed it off, saying the place had quirks, and I shouldn't let my imagination run wild. His tone didn't match his words, though. That night, I told myself I was overreacting. I had the windows open, the salty air drifting in, the sound of waves like white noise. I even pushed the closet door shut again without the chair, daring myself to let it be. Sometime past 3, I woke to that breathing. It wasn't the kind of sound you mistake for wind. It was deliberate. Slow inhales, slow exhales, deep, heavy lungs. My own chest went tight, trying not to match the rhythm. The closet door was cracked open again, wider than before. I lay frozen, every nerve screaming, waiting for movement. The shadows didn't shift, but I swear I heard the faintest sound of knuckles brushing wood, like someone's hand was pressed flat against the inside of the door frame. I snapped. I grabbed my phone and shone the flashlight straight at the closet. Empty. Clothes hanging limp on wire hangers, an old suitcase on the floor. No one inside, but the breathing hadn't stopped. It wasn't coming from the closet, it was behind me. I spun around, nearly dropping my phone, but there was nothing in the room. The sound cut off the instant I moved. Dead silence, so thick my ears rang. I didn't sleep until the sky lightened gray. The following morning I packed. I wasn't about to spend another night there. But before I left, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled everything out of the closet: clothes, suitcase, an old folded beach umbrella. The back wall had faint scratches on it, dozens of them, all at shoulder height. Not deep gouges, just marks, like fingernails dragged lightly across the wood. I shut the door one final time and left the house before noon. I didn't tell Rick until weeks later when we met for dinner. He listened quietly, nodding, and when I mentioned the scratches, his face drained of color. He finally told me something he'd never said to anyone outside the family. Back in the late 80s, a man had broken into that house. Not a burglar, a drifter who, for reasons nobody understood, decided to hide there for nearly 2 days. Rick's parents came down for a weekend visit and noticed food missing, objects moved around. When they searched, they found the man crouched in that very closet, arms wrapped tight around his knees, watching through the slats in the door. The police said he'd been slipping out at night to steal food from neighbors, then crawling back into the closet before dawn. The strangest part? When they asked why, he only said, "It was safe in there." Rick told me his mother swore she'd hear breathing at night after that, even when the place was empty. She refused to stay in the upstairs bedroom again. I haven't gone back either. But here's what unsettles me the most. 2 weeks ago, Rick called to say the house was finally being renovated. Contractors had gutted the upstairs, torn down the walls, replaced the old doors. And behind the closet wall, they found something no one expected: handprints. Faded, overlapping handprints covering the studs, smeared into the wood grain. Too many to count, some small, some large, like generations of palms pressed there over the years. The workers joked it looked like people had been standing inside the walls themselves, pressing to get out. That night after he told me, I couldn't shake the sound from my head. That slow, deliberate breathing, patient and steady, like whoever, or whatever it was, knew I could hear it and was only waiting for me to acknowledge it. And sometimes, when I'm trying to fall asleep in my own apartment, I catch myself holding my breath, straining to listen. Because every now and then, in the stillness of 3 a.m., I swear I hear it again. Story 2, The Black Device, Jersey Shore Beach House. I woke up to a faint buzzing sound coming from the corner of the room, like a phone vibrating endlessly on a hard surface. But I didn't own a phone that looked like that. I'd rented a small beach house on the Jersey Shore for a long weekend in late September, the kind of off-season trip where the boardwalks were empty and the ocean air felt sharper, cleaner. The place wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a balcony that looked out at the dunes. It was cheap because most of the summer tourists had cleared out, and I liked the idea of having a quiet stretch of sand almost entirely to myself. The first 2 days passed in exactly the way I wanted. Long walks along the shore, sitting on the balcony with a book, listening to the waves crash at night while the wind rattled the shutters. It felt like my own private escape. But on the 3rd morning, something shifted. When I woke, the air in the room was colder than it should have been, even with the window cracked. That's when I heard the buzzing, a low, steady vibration that seemed to hum against the walls themselves. At first I thought maybe a neighbor left a phone on, but the houses on either side of me were dark and empty. The sound was coming from inside. I followed it across the bedroom to the closet. On the floor, half hidden under an old wool blanket, was a small black device. It wasn't a phone, not exactly. It was thicker, heavier, with no buttons or screen that I could see. Just smooth black plastic with a faint seam running around the edge. The buzzing came from within, like something inside was struggling to get out. I picked it up, expecting it to be warm, but it was ice cold, as if it had been left in a freezer overnight. The moment it touched my hand, the buzzing stopped. I should have left it there. Instead, I set it on the dresser and tried to shrug it off. Maybe the last renter dropped some kind of portable speaker, I told myself. A weird old model. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stumbled across something I wasn't supposed to touch. That night I dreamed of the ocean. Not the peaceful shoreline I'd been walking, but a black sea under a starless sky, the waves rolling in without sound. I stood ankle-deep at the edge, staring out at the water, and felt something pulsing under the sand at my feet. When I looked down, the black device was half buried there, buzzing louder than before. And then, faintly, I saw a hand, pale and thin, press up against the inside of it, like the device was a window. I woke with my heart hammering, the sheets damp with sweat. On the dresser across the room, the device sat exactly where I left it. But now it wasn't silent. A faint crackling hiss leaked from it, like the static you hear between radio stations. I got up, intending to throw it outside, but when I picked it up, the hissing stopped again. Dead quiet. I set it back down, but for the rest of the night I couldn't sleep. The next day I tried to distract myself with a walk along the beach. The air smelled strongly of salt and something else, something metallic like rust. The sky was clear, but the water looked darker than usual, almost oily. I didn't see another soul the entire walk, not even a seagull. Back at the house, the buzzing had returned. This time, it didn't stop when I touched the device. It vibrated in my palm with a low, steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. And then I realized the faint crackling wasn't random static anymore. If I listened carefully, there were voices. They weren't clear, just fragments, like someone whispering in another room. But I could swear I heard my name. I dropped it on the floor and backed away. The whispers cut off instantly, leaving only silence. That night, I left it in the living room, as far from the bedroom as I could. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to the sound of footsteps pacing the hallway. Slow, deliberate, I froze in bed, straining to hear, but they stopped right outside the door. The air turned colder, and I felt the pressure shift in the room, like someone else was standing there, waiting. The door never opened, but when I finally worked up the courage to turn on the lamp, the device was sitting on the nightstand beside me. I hadn't moved it there. I didn't sleep after that. On the final morning of my stay, I decided I wasn't taking it with me. I wrapped the thing in a towel and carried it down to the beach. The sand was cool under my feet, the tide low. I walked out as far as I could, until the water reached my chest and hurled the bundle into the waves. It sank instantly, vanishing into the dark. For a moment, I felt relief. That night, back home, I woke around 3 again. My bedroom was pitch black, the kind of darkness that feels heavy, pressing. And then I heard it, the buzzing. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable. I turned on the lamp. It was sitting on my nightstand. The black device. Wet sand clung to its surface, and water pooled beneath it, soaking into the wood. The buzzing grew louder. And this time I didn't dare touch it. Story 3. The Kidnapping. Girls at the Beach House. I woke up to the sound of someone dragging their fingernails slowly across the sliding glass door of our beach house. Except we were 3 floors up, facing the ocean. It was the summer after my sophomore year of college, when my 2 best friends, Hannah and Claire, invited me to stay at Hannah's family's beach house in Delaware for a long weekend. The place was beautiful, perched right on the sand, with big windows and balconies that looked out over the Atlantic. It was the kind of place you'd see in a magazine, airy, bright, safe. We drove down on a Friday afternoon, blasting music, windows rolled down, talking about everything we wanted to do. Late-night swims, boardwalk food, staying up until dawn. The house was tucked away from the main strip, with only a couple of other houses within walking distance. At night, the whole stretch of beach felt like it belonged only to us. The first evening was perfect. We unpacked, cooked pasta, and drank cheap wine on the deck while the sun set. By midnight, we were lying on the sand in our hoodies, laughing and daring each other to run into the freezing water. Nothing felt off, at least not until we were walking back. The beach was nearly pitch black except for the glow from a few houses down the shore. I remember Claire whispering, "Someone's there." We all looked. About 30 yards away, just past the surf, a figure stood completely still. At first I thought it was a fisherman, but there was no pole, no bucket. Just someone facing our direction, unmoving. "Probably just another night owl," Hannah said, brushing it off. But none of us spoke as we hurried back inside. That night I couldn't fall asleep. The guest room had a huge sliding glass door that opened onto the deck. Normally it would have felt peaceful with the ocean breeze drifting in, but I couldn't shake the image of that figure. Sometime after 2 a.m., as I was finally drifting off, I heard it. A slow, deliberate scraping against the glass. Not tapping, not a branch, nails. I froze, staring at the curtains, too terrified to move. It went on for maybe 10 seconds, then stopped. I lay awake until morning, convincing myself it was just the wind. The next day, I tried not to mention it. I didn't want to ruin the trip. We went into town, ate funnel cake, took pictures on the pier. Everything felt normal again until we came back that evening. There were footprints in the sand leading up to the side of the house. The 3 of us stood there staring. They weren't ours, we'd been gone all day. Hannah said maybe it was a delivery person or some kids messing around, but the prints went right up to the edge of the deck, then disappeared. No package, no reason for anyone to be there. That night, none of us wanted to sleep alone. We dragged blankets into the living room and made a kind of nest on the floor. At around 3 a.m., Claire shook me awake. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. I listened. Faintly from upstairs came the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. We all looked at each other, wide-eyed. Hannah grabbed her phone, whispering that she was going to call her dad, but when she checked, no service. Claire tried hers. Same. The 3 of us crept toward the staircase. The house was silent again, but as soon as Hannah put her foot on the first step, the footsteps started again, this time above us. Someone was walking around in her parents' bedroom. We bolted. Out the front door, barefoot, straight onto the sand. The night was freezing, the wind whipping hard, but adrenaline kept us moving. We didn't stop until we were halfway down the beach, crouched behind a dune, shivering. From there we could see the house. The living room lights we'd left on glowed faintly through the windows. And then we saw it, a shadow moving across the top floor. Not one of us, it was taller, broader. It paused at the balcony door, as if looking out over the beach. I'll never forget the sound Claire made, a sharp gasp that caught in her throat. Because the shadow didn't just move once, it moved twice. There were two figures upstairs. We waited there for what felt like an hour, praying we weren't visible. Finally, headlights appeared on the road. A car pulled into the driveway of the house, 2 doors down. That was enough. We sprinted barefoot through the sand until we reached it, banging on the door like maniacs. An older couple answered, bewildered, but when we tried to explain, they didn't hesitate. The husband called the police immediately while his wife wrapped us in towels. It took maybe 15 minutes for the officers to arrive, but by then, the beach house was dark again. No shadows, no lights. The police searched every room, every closet, even under the deck. Nothing. No forced entry, no broken locks. The only sign that anything had happened were those same footprints in the sand, now mixed with our own. We didn't go back inside. Hannah's parents came that night to pick us up. I remember looking back at the house as we drove away, the windows reflecting the moonlight. It looked so normal, so harmless, like it hadn't just swallowed something we couldn't explain. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those figures moving upstairs, pacing silently in the rooms we had just been in hours earlier. 2 months later, Hannah texted me late at night. She said her parents had put the beach house up for sale. Potential buyers came to tour it, and during one showing, the realtor noticed something strange. In the upstairs bedroom closet, the back panel was slightly ajar. Behind it was a narrow crawl space. Inside, they found discarded food wrappers, empty water bottles, and a blanket. Someone had been living in the walls. The worst part wasn't that discovery. It was what the realtor said next. She told Hannah's parents she'd shown the house several times that summer, and every time she could have sworn the doors were already unlocked when she arrived. I try not to think about it, but sometimes I still hear it. The faint scrape of fingernails across glass, like someone letting me know they're still out there. Still watching, still waiting for another beach house full of girls who think they're safe.